All right, welcome everyone to a live edition of Tigers Win. Cody Worsham joined by LSU gymnastics coach Jay Clark. Welcome. Good to have you on.
Thanks, man.
We'll start in the obvious place. You guys just finished up the season. Give us the general season recap, which I guess you can't really give a general season recap based on the year that we've all just gone through, but gymnastics being no exception to the rule with COVID and the way that the previous season shut down, and then you getting to make your LSU head coaching debut in not ideal circumstances. So when you look back at the whirlwind that was, how do you assess the season that y'all just had?
It was unusual. It was unusual under any circumstances, just given the timing of Dee Dee's retirement not happening until the 1st of August. Our team was coming back in 2 weeks, and then you throw into the mix that we were in the middle of a pandemic and trying to negotiate, navigate what the policies were going to be and what all the things we were going to be able to do and not do in terms of training. And the kids had roughly 5.5 months where they had been not able to get into their gyms and train. So there were a lot of challenges from the beginning, and trying to hire, getting somebody hired in that at that time of year would have presented a challenge had we not known that if this day ever came, what we wanted to do. And so we were able to go get Bugs, Ashley Nat, to come back and do that. So it was a season full of challenges, but it was a season of great accomplishments as well. I was really proud of the way the kids bought into everything we were asking them to do. They put their social lives on hold, behaved themselves for the most part, did the things that we asked them to do in terms of their commitment level to the program. And while the final event on the final day didn't go the way exactly we would have planned and wanted to, I think overall it was a great season for us.
We already have a question. This one's from Bobby Matei. It says, "Hey, Coach Jay, any seniors returning? How are you going to replace those seniors? Looking forward to another season. Recruits? ? So I guess just big picture roster management. It's again unusual circumstances because the extra year of eligibility and balancing that. So how are y'all in the roster building process?
Well, the good news is that 5 of our 6 seniors are coming back.
Wow.
For their extra year. So we'll get to add them or keep them, I should say, and then we'll be bringing in three other freshmen this year. So it's from a talent perspective and a depth perspective, it's a good place to be in right now. Olivia Gunter is gainfully employed now and has graduated summa cum laude and has moved on to do her thing in the real world. But the other 5 that were part of her class that were participating will all be back. So that's a great thing. It also presents a challenge because what we want to do is allow these kids, Kaya Johnson and Alona Shinikofa and Kai Rivers, who have they're now naturally juniors. We want to make sure that they're given the leeway and are empowered to exert themselves in a leadership role, but also not squash the leadership that we've had in the past. So it's going to be a little bit of a melding of the minds and making sure that that a little bit is relinquished to some of those kids that have come up, but at the same time rely on the seniors that are coming back for them to play their vital role.
I had a breakfast with Olivia last week for the summa cum laude, and I don't know if you've got the update. I'll ask you for the scoop. She didn't have her passport yet, and she was about to head out of the country. Did she get her passport?
She got her passport.
All right.
She was able to do that. So she's taking her trip to Mexico with her friends and going to have a little break before she starts working.
Good. I told her I'd help her pull any strings that I could, but I don't have any connections at the State Department. So I'm glad she got the trip in. So let's go class by class then and look at the roster. And let's start at the top with those seniors who are coming back. And I don't even I guess we can go class by class. I don't even know how to classify some of these, juniors that are becoming seniors that are super seniors. But just with that eldest group and maybe the decision making, were any of them were any of them on the fence and had to be convinced to come back, or were they all just fired up to get back and wanted to compete a little bit more?
I don't think any of them were had to be convinced. I think from the beginning they were talking about wanting to come back, dating all the way back to September when they found out and kind of processed the idea that they might get an extra year of eligibility. Their bodies began to talk to them a little bit later in the year. You get a lot of mileage on your tires at that stage of the game in our sport, and it's I think their bodies were a little sore and hurting as we went along, so that caused them to second guess. But at the end of the day, I think a little bit of bad taste left in their mouth with the way things went on the final day, and couple that with some desires to go to grad school and do those kinds of things. So there really wasn't a lot of coercion that had to go into it. I was perfectly willing to coerce them, but we didn't have to go that way. No, so they'll all be back. I think their roles will be a little more specialized, maybe in some cases. Reagan Campbell's back is at a place where I don't know if it's in her best interest to do floor anymore, but certainly she's a balance beam, amazing balance beam worker, one of the best in the country.
For sure.
Balance beam is probably the place where they'll still have a big presence and impact. Christina Desiderio has been our lead off on that event for 3 years, and so I can imagine that we'll try to phase somebody else into that role, but we'll have the luxury of being able to move them in and out a little bit as we go, and they'll provide us with an awful lot of consistency, particularly on that event. But I see them all as one or two eventers still. Sammy Durante still has visions of doing floor. She's not done that in her career here, but was very close to doing that this year when we had some hardware taken out of her knee from a previous surgery, and that kind of slowed us down. So it's possible we'll see more there, but we're not going to take any undue risk with them.
Yeah.
Keep them in the role where they can help us the most, and go forward from there.
We'll skip around just a little bit because we have a couple questions. Okay. And by the way, Bobby said I nailed the pronunciation of his last name, so I'm psyched about that. This one is from Cedric Franklin in the chat. And by the way, for those who have hopped in later, you can ask questions on the chat or in the Q&A section. Cedric Franklin asks, have you had a chance to spend time with the incoming class and your thoughts on what they will bring to the team? So we just talked about the vets. How about the incoming group of Tigers?
Well, prior to COVID, when we went into this dead period where we were unable to go out and see our recruits and our commitments, so I haven't had a lot of contact with them recently other than video updates and things that they send me. But one of them is Aaliyah Finnegan, who is Sarah Finnegan's little sister, who we're extremely excited about. She's training for a shot at the Olympic Games right now, and fully anticipate her making Olympic trials and pursuing that wherever it winds up for her. But either way, we expect her to be here in the fall. Caitlin Johnson is another Texas Dreams gymnastics kid from the same gym as Kaya Johnson, Reagan Campbell, a little further back, Lamencia Hall. So we've had some great success with kids coming out of that program. And then we finally got one from Twin City Twisters up in Minnesota, who Oklahoma had sort of a stranglehold on that gym for a long time. So same gym as Maggie Nichols, who's been one of the big stars in our sport recently from Oklahoma. Tori Tatum is her name, and so we're excited. They really can contribute on all four events. All of it will depend on how they show up and where they are physically, but their resumes say they can help us on everything, and that's where the addition of the 5 seniors that are returning it's going to be a lot of mouths to feed, and we're going to have to make sure that we work hard to keep everybody happy and make sure that we make decisions based on real and tangible reasons, because we've got to make sure that they understand why we do things, not just that we've decided to do them.
I'll kind of lump in the middle. I'll call them middle classers together. The freshmen who will become sophomores, the sophomores who will become juniors. There's some big names there with Kaya Johnson and Haley Bryan who did some great things this year, and Kaya the year before. What's the next step in the development of that group of gymnasts?
I think just leadership, really. I think they're a quiet bunch by nature. And with the exception of Kai Rivers, and I think that she has the potential to be that sort of alpha dog that maybe we needed this year, that has a little edge to her, is not afraid to say what needs to be said. Her getting healthy and being able to contribute the ways that we know that she can will give her that platform to do that. I think we need to hear more from Kaya Johnson vocally. She's an amazing leader in the way she goes about her business and the way she conducts herself in life and in the classroom and in the gym and in every way. I want to hear a little more of her. I want to hear a little more of her voice. And I think Alona Shenikova made huge strides this year in her contribution level at all levels. So, I feel like they're going to be challenged by us as a staff, but also by those fifth years. I want them to kind of let them take control of some of that, and that's where we need to see the biggest growth.
A couple more questions here in the chat. One's from an anonymous attendee. Coach, thank you for taking time to meet with us. How excited are the athletes to have the PMAC almost back to its pre-pandemic form? And I would I would take the almost out. I think it'll be back as soon as we can get it rolling. Not to put the horse ahead of the cart here, but I was telling you before this, my kids are obsessed with the gymnastics meet. We go to every one at home. This year we just weren't able to, juggling everything, and I know that was the way for a lot of people in the limited capacity. To get that thing back to full capacity, how exciting is that going to be?
It's going to be key. I mean, it's something that, I'm glad to hear that everybody feels like that's what's going to happen, because honestly, it's something that has been of great concern to me. I want to make sure that we get everybody back, that we get everybody off their couch and out from behind their TVs and get them comfortable with the idea of getting back into a public setting and feeling safe about doing that and getting in there and creating an atmosphere that's unlike any other in our sport. And it's something that has given us a tremendous advantage in years past that we really – it's imperative that we get those 7,000 season tickets and more back. We want to get in there and average 12,000 again, and that's the goal. That's the intent, and I want to make sure that we interact with our fans and give them the personal experience that we had come known for having, and enhance what we've been doing in the past. And if they can get in there and do that, we're gonna give them a product that they're going to be proud of, and we're going to go in there and win an awful lot.
Bobby had a follow-up question. My wife wants me to confirm Sarah Edwards coming back, right?
Indeed, she is.
So let's look back at the end of the season and then to get to where you are now and then where you want to get in the fall. What's the process from your perspective as the head coach of the season ends, roster management, which we've talked about a little bit, but then starting to prepare for the fall when they're back? Right now, I think basically everyone's gone home as far as I understand. This time of year, what are you really invested in this time of year?
Well, we just came off a 3-day planning retreat with our staff. Went over to my in-laws have a beach house that we just went and we were working, by the way. We weren't over there sitting on the beach, but just looked at the whole year comprehensively. And this is the first time as a staff, we've been able to do that, where we can take a look at the calendar, what we want that to look like, what we want our training regimen to look like. We have a greater idea of what to expect from the kids physically, because they're not going to have 5.5 months off. We've been working really hard on revamping our conditioning program a little bit, especially the summer and the fall portions of that, working with our strength coach and our athletic trainer and our coaching staff to get that done. We've done everything now from a planning perspective we're going to do. I wanted them to take some time after this season because mentally it had been a hard year on them, more so than any other year. And so normally we would want them to be, getting back into the conditioning at this point and everything. We're going to give them a little more time before we start jamming on them a little bit.
Sure.
And we'll get the conditioning rolling here pretty quick, and then we'll have a lot of them back for summer school. Some of them will come back to work camp. And we'll have voluntary practice because that's really all we can do during the summer. But they'll know where the expectations are for August when we return, and it's exciting. I get charged up when we do those staff retreats because you start to create a vision, and that's really what we weren't able to do in the short window that we had, and with everything that was going on last year. Now we can kind of see where we want to go and how to put those pieces of the puzzle together.
Got another question here from Robert Gibson. I'm reading kind of small font here, so forgive me if I get it wrong. I was in Fort Worth. It was a great experience. Whose idea was it to do the routine of the gymnast, Shea Campbell, that rotated with the team? That's the UCLA gymnast. I do think that was awesome.
Well, I think it's kind of a tradition around here where whoever our individual with us is, that's a difficult situation for that kid when their team doesn't advance, and particularly a program like UCLA that's such a storied program that in most years expects to be vying for a national championship. They weren't able to get there this year. Some of our kids on our team knew her when they were in club gymnastics together, so there was a familiarity. And they just embraced her. I don't think it was anybody's idea. I think it was spontaneous and genuine on our kids' part. I know that the coaching staff from UCLA was really appreciative of how we kind of took her in and made her an honorary Tiger and gave her the stick crown and the whole thing when she went through that. And it was a good time. I think once you get to that level at the national championships, there's such a great respect between all these kids, and it just sort of happened.
So you talked about a little bit the leadership you want to see develop within the roster, and then maybe some of the mental edge as well. How do you go about approaching that? Because we can talk about conditioning and physical and all that stuff, but mentality is as key as anything. Does that start now? Does that start in the fall when everyone's here? Does that start when some of them are here in summer school? How do you start taking that next step collectively, mentally as a team?
Well, it started almost immediately. We wrapped up the year with individual meetings with each one of them and talked about what we did well and what we didn't, and where we need to improve. And we're not going to knee-jerk react to an outcome that happened in the final rotation when we were leading that meet virtually the entire way. But we are going to take a look at what we do and how we prepare mentally, and I want them to understand that there will be some things differently. We're not going to repeat everything the same way and expect a different result. We're going to get better. And so some of the things that we've talked to them about, some of the things they have even verbalized themselves, just have to do with when we get into practice and creating a level of expectation on themselves and holding themselves accountable to a higher degree of mental preparation, I think, is going to be the key. It wasn't a physical thing at all. We were physically prepared, and I think the gymnastics that we did for the most part showed that. But I do think we were a little soft between the ears when pressure got to us. We've got to create a scenario where we prepare better for those moments, because they do come. And without making excuses, it's important to note that these now going to be super seniors. The last time they had been in an environment like that, they had Sarah Finnegan and Lexi Priestman and McKenna Kelly and Kennedy Edney and Ruby Harold running point on all of this, and they were playing very lesser roles, and so it was a different scenario for them. I think they got hit with it pretty hard, finishing on beam on the last event, and it got to them. That's our responsibility to make sure that doesn't happen. So we'll change some things in the way we go about our things, not from a physical perspective, but in the way that we ramp things up in terms of expectation in the gym.
Bobby has another question here. Jay, what did you say to Sammy when she had that fall? That was a signature moment. The look in her eyes was priceless. Like, I'm coming back look.
Well, when she had that fall, it was it was a fluke. I mean, the kid, her hands caught the bar and slipped off, and I do think it rattled particularly her classmates' cage, because Sammy has been the epitome of consistency throughout her career, and she was shocked. We were all shocked. What I said to her is, like, finish this routine strong. It was really about the moment. It wasn't about anything beyond that. At the end of the meet, I went to her and just said, I want you to feel it. I don't want you to own it. And I said that to all of them. I want them all to feel and examine and do some self-reflection and look themselves in the mirror and understand that we've all got to do better collectively. Those moments are going to happen for every team. It's what happens next that's most important. And the lesson we learned is that we didn't handle what happens next as well as we should have. So it was just to try to encourage her and make sure that she knew that nobody was placing any blame or finger pointing. It was just to encourage her and make sure that she didn't put it on her shoulders and walk around with it.
I think Gabe, who's sitting right over here, would smack me if I didn't ask you about it, but the home schedule for next year is unbelievable.
Yeah,
I was looking at the season ticket letter and just the names going down. Hopefully we get to the point where it's packed, and I believe we'll get there, but how incredible is it to have that schedule and to hopefully be able to welcome back fans with that kind of lineup?
Well, I feel philosophically making our schedule. There's been some years in the past where we had some opponents in here that there was no mystery about what the outcome was going to be.
Yep.
But we're bringing Cal in here. Our non-conference schedule, we're bringing Berkeley in here, who was at Nationals this year. We're bringing Utah in here, who finished third in the country. So I feel like from a philosophical perspective, we have an obligation to our fans. We've built this fan base up. I want to make sure that they get a good experience when they come to the PMAC, and that it's not a snoozer. We run the risk potentially of losing some of those competitions, but we also create an environment where you're going to see something exciting for our fans.
Yep.
And we're going to create growth for ourselves. If we do lose some of those meets, we'll be better for it. We're not going to be able to coast through a lot of these competitions. So every time you come in the PMAC, you're going to see an exciting meet. And it's whether it's the SEC conference schedule or whether it's out of conference, we want to try to bring the top teams in here and give our fans what they want to see.
We have another question from anonymous attendee. When is the schedule typically finalized in terms of dates and times?
TV dictates a lot of that.
Yeah.
We have to wait. We have to wait till we get through basketball schedule getting finalized, and usually by late August we can nail that down. We do have the dates. Everything's kind of set in stone there. There's the potential for adding another local meet this year. We're looking at the possibility of having a meet at the River Center on a Sunday that would count as an away score for us on a podium. So we're investigating that. There's somebody that hosts a meet there that is interested in hosting a collegiate competition that would get us. So it would be a double weekend for us. We might have a Friday at home or away and then be at the River Center on a Sunday, which will be another opportunity for people who aren't necessarily season ticket holders to get out and see us in a different venue.
You talked earlier about having more mouths to feed this year. What is the comparison and what the roster size is going to be this year as opposed to previous years? Is it going to be significantly larger? Is it going to be 2, 3, 4 extra athletes?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at 21 on our roster this year. It'll be the first time I've ever – in 31 years had a team more than 19. So, from a sheer roster size perspective, it's going to be great. Look, I want our rosters to grow in general.
Mm-hmm.
I've been pushing for more scholarship opportunities in our sport for a long time. I think it's time to happen.
What's the number right now?
It's at 12,
Yeah.
and we haven't had an increase since 1995.
Wow.
While other sports have gone on and had increases, and
Wow.
and there's some with the viability of what we're doing and live television being what it's done and the interest level growing. I think it's time. At the last time we had an increase was 1995. There was roughly 1,000 kids at the junior Olympic level that were what you would consider the level of being recruited. We're now over 4 times that.
Wow.
And so and we haven't seen an increase in that period of time. So I think the pool of talent has grown enough. The interest level has grown enough. Television's doing what they're doing. It's time for us to increase. So squad sizes need to go up, and I think that's good for everybody involved.
Almost missed this question from Jack Welch. Does RQS go back to normal next year?
Yeah, it'll go back. They call it NQS now. You're dating yourself there a little bit, Jack. The RQS it was what we called it forever. It's now called NQS, a national qualifying score, because we go into a tournament bracket rather than just qualifying to regionals. So, but yes, it will go back to normal. And this year, I think it played a role in
creating a little bit of imbalance on each side of the bracket.
I asked Coach Mulkey this question the other day when I was talking with her because she's won 3 national championships and she's coming back to LSU and kind of starting to build something. I asked her what's more difficult, the first step, getting it off the ground, or the last step to finish it. And then I asked Russell Brock the same question before they went to nationals, and he said they both had the same answer. It's that last step. And so I think I may be done asking that question in general because I think the answer is going to keep being the same. But what's it going to take to make that last step from your perspective, to get from being there, being in the mix, being in the arena, to being the one holding the trophy at the end?
Well, that's whatever the $100 million question, I guess. All I can tell you is that we will continue to examine every little thing we do. I've been a part of a program that won 10 total, and I was there for 8 of them. And I can tell you that the last ones seemed easy. Once you get that hump and you have a culture where they understand how to do it, and telling them how to do it is different than actually being able to get them over that hump. And I think Michigan's a prime example this year. Bev Plotky's been there 33 years, I believe, and had some great teams over the years and finally got over the hump. And it's so much of it is about the culture of your team, so much of it is about chemistry, and those are coach speak kind of things that you hear an awful lot of, and you can't really quantify. They're intangible. They're things that you can't, get empirical data that says we have it or we don't have it. But you know when you have it, and you know when you don't, and you know to varying degrees what you have over the course of time. I think our culture is healthy. I think it's been that way for several years, and I think that's going to be our greatest asset as we try to get over that hump. Certainly, we've got to do a better job of preparing mentally, and we're going to do that. And then we'll see where it happens. What happens. So much of it comes down to in our sport on a given day. There is no defense. There is no coming out with a great deal of emotion and being more prepared from an emotional standpoint. It has to do with being hot at the right time on the right day. It comes down to one day, and we're going to get there. It's just a matter of time.
We'll finish with these last two. They're both similarly asked. This first one's from Charlene Welch Lawson. Sorry, I had to lean in just to see the name there. And then the other one's from Anonymous Attendee again. They're both about construction of routines. And Charlene specifically is, will you reconstruct beam routines to be more consistent, less chances for balance checks and falls. And the next question was pretty similar about routine construction. Is there any thought to, more safety, less, higher floor, lower ceiling type of approach? Or
I think with certain kids you do that, but if we had seen things in training this year that indicated we were taking some sort of undue risk, we would have addressed it then. So I don't anticipate any real categorical changes. There are things we can do with some of the younger ones that'll allow them to get more consistent more quickly. As far as the returning seniors go, they've been doing these routines for years.
Yeah.
And so it's really not a question of that. I do generally like in spots on balance beam, I kind of like get on the beam simply, get off the beam simply, do the meat of your routine in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like big difficult mounts and going crazy on dismounts, just as a general rule. And I feel the same way about bars, because every time you add more things to bars, you're adding more places, like a kip cast handstand that's just going to create a built-in deduction for you or something. So, but on floor, I think we'll keep doing the big difficulty. I think it's something that we probably didn't get rewarded for as much as I would have hoped this year. Every single kid we put on the floor opened with an E, finished with a D. We saw routines at the national championships that were doing 2 passes. I don't know if people were more lenient on certain things because it was a COVID year, and they just were, I don't know. But in a normal year, I would like to think that our tumbling would be rewarded more than it was this year.
Last one from Jack Welch. Is Lee our only girl in Olympic tryout camp?
Aaliyah, yeah, she's probably.
Sorry, I can't read the small
yeah,
text.
the other two. The other two are at JO Nationals right now. It's not called that anymore. USAG has changed the name. So they're level 10s, former elites that dropped back to level 10 to finish out before they went to school. Aaliyah is a senior international United States elite team member, and so she's in the hunt for Olympic trials. She's got to qualify still. She'll go to championships of the USA in June and try to qualify to trials.
All right. Thank you all for coming and enjoying the live experience. Coach, thank you for your time. Pleasure talking to you.
Great talking to you guys. Help us pack the PMAC.